I'm Aria, 35, and literally last weekend, my rep as the family glue? Yeah, it totally backfired. The piece I'd worked my butt off to keep solid? It blew up into a full-on family meltdown at our so-called happy reunion. My sister, Lauren, straight up demanded I take her side after she lost it over a dress, and when I clapped back, the room went dead silent. "You just ruined us," she yelled, with my parents, Vernon and Dolores, staring like I'd betrayed them all. But here's the tea. Their shade didn't break me, it lit a spark. I'm not just pushing back. I'm about to flip the script and change everything. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, hit subscribe, and stay with me for the most satisfying revenge you'll ever hear. Looking back, it's almost unreal what I'll do once that decision hits. It started at my parents' house in the suburbs, the kind of place with doilies on every table and a fridge full of casseroles. Theo, my 7-year-old, was playing in the living room, his little hands clutching a juice box. Lauren, 38, stormed in, her face twisted like she'd bitten a lemon. Her favorite dress, some overpriced silk thing, was splattered with grape juice. "Theo did this," she screamed, pointing at him like he'd committed a felony. Before I could react, she grabbed his arm, hard, and shook him. His eyes went wide, tears spilling, and my heart stopped. I lunged, pulling him behind me. "Don't you dare touch him!" I snapped. Lauren's jaw dropped like I'd slapped her. Vernon, my dad, coughed awkwardly, adjusting his glasses. "Aria, calm down," he said like I was the problem. Dolores, my mom, clutched her pearls, literally, and hissed, "You're making a scene." "A scene?" My son was trembling and they were worried about optics. I knelt beside Theo, wiping his cheeks. "You're okay, buddy," I whispered, but my hands were shaking. Lauren ranted about her dress like how I'd raised a brat. I stood, staring her down. "He's a kid. You're an adult. Act like." The room froze. My cousins Lyle and Fern exchanged glances, their wine glasses hovering mid-sip. My uncle Garth cleared his throat but said nothing. I could feel the weight of their judgment, the same old script. Aria's too dramatic, too sensitive. But this wasn't about a dress. This was Lauren crossing a line and my parents enabling it. Again. I'd spent years swallowing their blame, but seeing Theo's fear? That was my breaking point. I scooped Theo up, his small body curling into mine, and marched to the door. "We're leaving," I said, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. Lauren scoffed, "Good riddance." Vernon called after me, "You're overreacting." But I didn't turn back. In the car, Theo's quiet sniffles broke me. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. I'd always been the one to smooth things over to keep the peace, but peace at what cost? Not my son. Never my son. That night, as Theo slept, I sat at my kitchen table staring at my phone. I wasn't just angry, I was done. Done being the scapegoat. Done letting Lauren's toxicity slide. I opened my laptop, started typing, and made a vow. I'd protect Theo no matter what it took. Theo's soft breathing filled the car as I drove home, the streetlights casting shadows across his sleeping face. My mind drifted back, the sting of that night at my parents' house pulling up memories I'd tried to bury. Growing up, I was always the odd one out, the kid who never quite fit the family mold. Vernon and Dolores had a knack for polishing Lauren's every move while my efforts got a shrug or a sigh. It wasn't just neglect, it was a pattern, carved deep into my bones. I remember my high school art show, age 16, when I won first place for a painting I'd poured my heart into. I'd spent weeks on it, blending colors until my fingers cramped. I invited my family, practically begging them to come. That night, I stood by my canvas, scanning the crowd. No Vernon, no Dolores. Lauren showed up late, glanced at my work, and said, "Cute, but it's not like it's a real job." Later, I found out they'd all gone to her debate team finals instead. She placed third, and the house was a shrine to her bronze trophy for weeks. My ribbon? Tucked in a drawer, forgotten. Then there was college. I worked 2 jobs to pay my tuition, scraping by on ramen and grit. I graduated with honors, a degree in social work, proud I'd done it on my own. At the ceremony, I spotted my parents in the crowd, clapping politely. But at dinner, Dolores gushed about Lauren's new marketing job, how she was climbing the ladder. Vernon nodded, adding, "Lauren's making us proud." I sat there, diploma in my bag, feeling like a ghost. "I graduated today," I said quietly. Dolores patted my hand. "Oh, we know, dear, it's just, Lauren's in such a competitive field." Even when Theo was born, it was the same. I'd call to share his milestones, his first steps, his goofy laugh, and get half listened to mms while Lauren's latest promotion dominated the conversation. Once, I overheard Vernon on the phone bragging about his girls to a friend. He meant Lauren and Dolores. I wasn't even a footnote. Back in the present, I pulled into my driveway, Theo still asleep. I carried him inside, his head heavy on my shoulder. Laying him in bed, I brushed his hair back, my chest tight. I'd built a life for us, stable, loving, but the echoes of being invisible still hurt. Lauren's attack on Theo wasn't just a moment, it was a lifetime of her being untouchable, propped up by my parents' blind loyalty. I'd swallowed it all, thinking I could change them. But now, I saw it clearly. They'd never change. I'd been chasing their approval, and it cost me too much. Sitting on the couch, I stared at the family photo on the wall. Me, Theo, Vernon, Dolores, Lauren, all smiling at some long-ago picnic. I used to think I could fix us. Now I saw the truth. I wasn't the problem. They were. My fingers twitched, wanting to tear the photo down, but I stopped. Instead, I grabbed my notebook. If they wanted to play favorites, fine. But I wasn't playing anymore. I started jotting down every detail of Lauren's outburst, every word, every action. This wasn't just about tonight. This was about ending the cycle. For me, for Theo. The kitchen clock ticked past midnight, its steady rhythm grounding me as I sat at the table. My notebook open, pen scratching furiously. Theo's scared eyes kept flashing in my mind. Lauren's grip on his arm, her venom over a stupid dress. My anger wasn't just hot, it was cold, sharp, focused. That's when it hit him, not by begging my family to see reason, but by building a wall of evidence they couldn't ignore. This wasn't just a reaction. It was my aha moment, the spark of a plan to take back control. I started small, replaying the night in my head. I wrote down Lauren's exact words. "You little brat, you ruined it." I noted how she shook Theo, how her nails dug into his skin. I described Vernon's cough, Dolores's pearl clutching, the way Lyle and Fern just watched. My hand trembled, but I kept going, every detail a brick in the case I was building. Then I grabbed my phone, scrolling through photos from the reunion. There it was, a blurry shot of Lauren looming over Theo, her face twisted. It wasn't perfect, but it was proof. The next day, I took Theo to the park, letting him run off his jitters. While he swung on the monkey bars, I called my friend Wendy, a pediatric nurse. "Can you check him for bruises?" I asked, keeping my voice low. She met us at her clinic, her face softening as Theo showed her his arm. "Minor bruising?" she said, jotting notes. "I'll document it." Her pen moved deliberately, and I felt a surge of gratitude. This was real. This was evidence. Back home, I dug deeper. I remembered Lauren's public persona. Her polished Instagram, her inspirational talks at local events. She was a marketing exec, always playing the perfect sister-daughter role model. But I knew the real Lauren, volatile, entitled, untouchable. I started saving her posts, screenshots of her gushing about family values while she'd just hurt my son. The hypocrisy burned, but it also fueled me. I contacted my cousin Fern, who'd been at the reunion. "Did you see what Lauren did?" I asked. She hesitated, her voice tight. "Yeah, Arya, it was bad. I'm sorry I didn't say anything. I didn't push. I just asked her to write down what she saw." She emailed me a statement that night, short but damning. The struggle wasn't just logistics, it was emotional. Every step felt like betraying the family I'd spent years trying to hold together. I'd lie awake, second-guessing myself. Was I overreacting? But then I'd see Theo flinch when someone raised their voice, and my resolve hardened. This wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. I reached out to a lawyer, Patrice, recommended by Wendy. Over coffee, I showed her my notebook, the photo, Fern's statement. Patrice's eyes narrowed. "This is strong," she said, tapping the table. "We can build a civil case, assault, emotional distress. Lauren's public image won't survive it." By week's end, I had a file. Witness accounts, Wendy's report, screenshots, the photo. It wasn't just a collection, it was power. For the first time, I wasn't the scapegoat, I was the one writing the story, and I was ready to make Lauren face the consequence. The morning of the big family meeting, my stomach churned as I stood in my kitchen, stirring oatmeal for Theo. He sat at the counter, humming softly, his legs swinging. I forced a smile, but my mind was racing. Tonight, I'd face Vernon, Dolores, and Lauren at their house to resolve the reunion disaster. They'd framed it as a chance to fix things, but I knew better. It was an ambush to pin the blame on me. Still, I was ready. my file of evidence tucked in a locked drawer, my lawyer Patrice on speed dial. This wasn't just a meeting, it was the eve of my stand. I dropped Theo at school, his backpack bouncing as he waved goodbye. Driving home, I replayed Patrice's advice. Stay calm, let them talk, don't tip your hand. Easier said than done. My parents' house loomed in my mind, a museum of my failures, every visit a reminder of how I never measured up. But this time, I wasn't going to beg for their approval. I was there for Theo, to protect him and to set the stage for the lawsuit that would dismantle Lauren's lies. At home, I pulled out my notebook, reviewing my plan. Patrice had warned me the civil case could take months, but we had enough to file soon. Assault, emotional distress, maybe defamation if Lauren kept spinning her story. I added a new note. Record the meeting. I tested my phone's voice memo app, hiding it in my purse for later. It felt sneaky, but Lauren's attack on Theo wasn't a one-off. She'd escalate if I didn't act. I called Wendy for a pep talk. You're doing the right thing, she said, her voice firm. Theo deserves better. I nodded, gripping the phone, her words anchoring me. By afternoon, I was a mess of nerves, pacing my living room. I tried to distract myself, folding Theo's laundry, his tiny socks, a reminder of why I couldn't back down. I thought about calling Fern for backup, but she'd already risked enough with her statement. This was my fight. I picked out my outfit, jeans, a crisp blouse, nothing flashy. I wanted to look steady, not desperate. In the mirror, I practiced my lines. Lauren hurt Theo. That's not okay. Simple, undeniable. As evening fell, I drove to my parents' house, the familiar streetlights blurring past. My hands tightened on the wheel, my pulse hammering. I parked, staring at the glowing windows, laughter spilling out. They were already inside, probably sipping wine, rewriting the narrative to make me the villain. I slipped my phone into my purse, the record button ready. For a moment, I wanted to run, back to Theo, to safety. But then I saw his tear-streaked face in my mind and my fear turned to steel. I stepped out, my boots clicking on the pavement, each step a promise. I wasn't here to play nice. I was here to lay the groundwork, to let them think they'd won, while I built the case that would protect my son and expose their hypocrisy. The doorbell chimed as I pressed it, and I took a deep breath, ready to face the storm. The door swung open, and Dolores stood there, her lips pursed like she'd just sucked on a lime. Aria, she said, her voice clipped, stepping aside to let me in. The living room was a stage set for judgment. Vernon in his armchair, glasses perched low, Lauren on the couch, legs crossed, a glass of red wine in hand. The air was thick with tension, the kind that makes your skin prickle. I slipped my purse onto a side table, the phone inside quietly recording, and sat on the edge of a stiff chair, my back straight, ready for the onslaught. Lauren didn't waste time. So, you're here to apologize? She said, her tone dripping with condescension, her manicured nails tapping her glass. I blinked, keeping my face neutral, though my fists clenched in my lap. Apologize for what? I asked, my voice even. She scoffed, glancing at Vernon and Dolores like they were her backup singers. For blowing everything out of proportion, Aria. Your kid ruined my dress, and you made it a federal case. My jaw tightened, but I remembered Patrice's advice. Let them talk. Vernon cleared his throat, leaning forward, his hands clasped like he was about to deliver a sermon. We're a family, Aria. You don't just storm out and make accusations. Lauren was upset, sure, but Theo needs to learn boundaries. I stared at him, my heart pounding. Boundaries? My 7-year-old needed boundaries, but Lauren's tantrum got a pass? Dolores chimed in, her voice syrupy with fake concern. We're worried about you, dear. You're so reactive. It's not healthy for Theo seeing you like this. The room felt smaller, their words a barrage of backhanded jabs. Lauren leaned forward, smirking. You've always been dramatic, Aria. Remember that time you cried over your little art prize? This is just like that, making a scene for attention. My cheeks burned, the memory of my ignored high school award stinging fresh. But I didn't bite. I tilted my head, meeting her eyes. So, shaking a child is fine, but me standing up for him is dramatic? Her smirk faltered, just for a second. Dolores sighed, adjusting her cardigan. You're twisting things. Lauren didn't mean harm. You're the one tearing this family apart. Vernon nodded, his voice stern. We've supported you, Aria, despite your choices. But this? It's ungrateful. Ungrateful. The word hit like a slap, but I kept my gaze steady, my fingers digging into my palms. They were rewriting the story, painting me as the problem, just like always. I could feel the weight of years. Every ignored achievement, every dismissed effort, pressing down, but I didn't crack. I took a slow breath, glancing at my purse, the phone capturing every word. I came to talk about Theo's safety, I said, my voice low but firm. Lauren heard him, that's not up for debate. Lauren rolled her eyes, sipping her wine. Get over it, Arya. He's fine. The casual dismissal lit a fire in me, but I held back, knowing this moment wasn't the endgame. This was them digging their own hole, and I was letting them. As Dolores started another lecture about family unity, I sat there, silent, my resolve hardening with every word they threw. Dolores's voice droned on about keeping the family together, but it was Lauren's smug grin that kept my eyes locked. The living room felt like a courtroom, and I was already guilty. My phone, hidden in my purse, recorded every word, but my heart raced as the conversation took a darker turn. Vernon leaned back in his armchair, his glasses glinting under the lamp, and fixed me with a stare that made my stomach twist. Arya, he said, his tone heavy like he was pronouncing a sentence, you're tearing us apart, and we can't keep excusing it. I opened my mouth to protest, but Dolores cut in, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. We've decided, she said, glancing at Lauren for approval. If you can't apologize for your behavior and let this go, you're choosing to walk away from this family. My breath caught. Walk away? They were framing it like I was the one abandoning them, when Lauren's hands on Theo were the real crime. I looked at Lauren expecting a flicker of guilt, but she just sipped her wine, her lips curling slightly like she'd won. Apologize, I said, my voice steady despite the fire in my chest. For protecting my son? Vernon sighed, rubbing his temple. You're blowing this out of proportion. Lauren made a mistake, but you're making it personal. Personal? I wanted to scream, but I clenched my fists, nails biting into my palms. She hurt Theo, I said, each word deliberate. That's not a mistake, that's a choice. Lauren snorted, setting her glass down with a sharp clink. Oh, please, Arya, he's not some fragile flower, you're just using him to play victim like always. The room went quiet, the weight of her words hanging heavy. Dolores reached for Vernon's hand, her eyes brimming with crocodile tears. We've tried with you, Arya, she said softly, but if you keep this up we can't support you anymore. Financially, emotionally, none of it. My throat tightened. Financially? They'd been helping with Theo's school fees, a lifeline I'd relied on. This wasn't just blame, it was a threat to cut me off, to isolate me completely. I leaned forward, my voice low but sharp. You're choosing Lauren over Theo's safety. That's what this is. Vernon's face hardened. We're choosing peace, you're the one making war. Lauren chimed in, her voice dripping with venom. Just say you're sorry, Arya, and we can move on. Or don't, and you're out. Out. The word echoed, final, like a door slamming shut. My parents' faces were set, unified in their verdict. I was the problem, and if I didn't bend, I was done. My heart pounded, but I didn't flinch. I stood, grabbing my purse, the phone still recording their betrayal. I'm not apologizing for protecting my son, I said, looking each of them in the eye. And I'm not the one breaking this family. You are. Lauren rolled her eyes, but Vernon and Dolores just stared, their silence louder than any words. I walked to the door, my boots heavy on the hardwood, feeling the weight of their ultimatum, but also a strange clarity. They thought they'd broken me. They had no idea what I was about to do. I stepped out of my parents' house, the night air cool against my flushed cheeks, my purse clutched tight with the phone still recording their words. My legs trembled as I reached my car, but before I could open the door my phone buzzed, a call from Patrice, my lawyer. I slid into the driver's seat, locking the door, and answered, my voice low. Patrice, you won't believe what just happened. Her calm, steady tone cut through my adrenaline. Tell me later, I've got news. Your evidence is airtight. My heart skipped, the weight of the meeting lifting just enough to let me breathe. Patrice explained she'd reviewed everything. Wendy's medical report on Theo's bruises, Fern's witness statement, the blurry photo, even Lauren's social media posts preaching kindness. We've got enough for a civil suit, she said, her voice firm. Assault, emotional distress, and we can hit her where it hurts. Her reputation. I gripped the steering wheel, staring at the glowing windows of my parents' house. Her career? I asked. Patrice didn't hesitate. She's built her brand on being a role model. This will unravel it. I closed my eyes, picturing Lauren's smug grin from minutes ago, her demand for an apology. This wasn't just justice, it was power. I started the car, the engine's hum steadying me. "What's next?" I asked. Patrice laid it out. "We'd file the lawsuit within days, request a restraining order for Theo's safety, and go public if needed. Her company won't keep her once this breaks," she added. I nodded, though she couldn't see me, my mind racing. Lauren's marketing firm was her throne, her Instagram a shrine to her perfect life. I'd been the scapegoat for years, but now? I had the tools to flip the script. Driving home, I replayed the meeting, Vernon's cold verdict, Dolores's fake tears, Lauren's venom. Their words caught on my phone were another weapon. I pulled into my driveway, the house dark except for a porch light. Inside, I checked on Theo, asleep in his bed, his face peaceful. I brushed his hair back, my chest tight. "I've got you," I whispered. Sitting on the couch, I opened my laptop, pulling up the file of evidence. Wendy's report was clinical, precise. Minor bruising, consistent with forceful gripping. Fern's statement was short but clear. Lauren shook Theo aggressively. The photo, grainy but damning, showed her towering over him. I emailed Patrice the recording from tonight, my fingers steady. "This is gold," she texted back minutes later. "They're burying themselves." For the first time in hours, I exhaled, a small smile tugging at my lips. They thought they'd silenced me, but they'd just handed me more ammunition. Lauren's career, her image, her untouchable status, it was all on borrowed time. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't just about protecting Theo anymore. It was about showing them I wasn't invisible, that their lies couldn't erase me. As I closed my laptop, a quiet resolve settled in. The call from Patrice had changed everything, not because of the lawsuit alone, but because it gave me control. For once I wasn't reacting, I was leading. And Lauren was about to learn what it felt like to lose. The next morning, I stood in my kitchen, coffee mug warm in my hands, the weight of Patrice's call still electric in my veins. Theo was at school, and I had a meeting with Patrice in an hour to finalize the lawsuit papers. But first, I needed to face Lauren one last time, not to beg or plead, but to let her see the cracks in her perfect facade. I drove to her office, a sleek downtown building with glass walls and pretentious art. My phone, fully charged, was in my pocket, ready to record if she slipped up. This wasn't impulsive, it was calculated, the final move before the legal hammer dropped. Lauren's assistant, a nervous guy named Clint, led me to her corner office. She sat behind a glossy desk, her hair pulled back, a stack of papers neatly aligned. "Arya," she said, not looking up, her voice laced with annoyance. "What now?" I closed the door, my heart steady, and sat across from her. "We need to talk about Theo," I said, my tone calm but firm. She rolled her eyes, leaning back. "You're still on that? It was a dress, Arya, let it go." Her dismissal was so casual, it almost threw me, but I caught the flicker of unease in her eyes. I leaned forward, my hands clasped. "You hurt my son, Lauren. I have proof, witnesses, photos, medical reports." Her smirk faded, her fingers pausing on her pen. "Proof?" she scoffed, but her voice cracked. I didn't blink. "Fern saw it, Wendy documented the bruises, and your family values posts? They'll look real hollow next to the truth." Her face paled, just for a second, before she forced a laugh. "You're bluffing. No one will believe you over me." But her hands trembled, betraying her. I emailed Patrice the recording from tonight, my fingers steady. "This is gold," she texted back minutes later. "They're burying themselves." For the first time in hours, I exhaled, a small smile tugging at my lips. They thought they'd silenced me, but they'd just handed me more ammunition. Lauren's career, her image, her untouchable status, it was all on borrowed time. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't just about protecting Theo anymore. It was about showing them I wasn't invisible, that their lies couldn't erase me. As I closed my laptop, a quiet resolve settled in. The call from Patrice had changed everything, not because of the lawsuit alone, but because it gave me control. For once I wasn't reacting, I was leading. And Lauren was about to learn what it felt like to lose. The next morning, I stood in my kitchen, coffee mug warm in my hands, the weight of Patrice's call still electric in my veins. Theo was at school, and I had a meeting with Patrice in an hour to finalize the lawsuit papers. But first, I needed to face Lauren one last time, not to beg or plead, but to let her see the cracks in her perfect facade. I drove to her office, a sleek downtown building with glass walls and pretentious art. My phone, fully charged, was in my pocket, ready to record if she slipped up. This wasn't impulsive. It was calculated, the final move before the legal hammer dropped. Lauren's assistant, a nervous guy named Clint, led me to her corner office. She sat behind a glossy desk, her hair pulled back, a stack of papers neatly aligned. "Arya," she said, not looking up, her voice laced with annoyance. "What now?" I closed the door, my heart steady, and sat across from her. "We need to talk about Theo," I said, my tone calm but firm. She rolled her eyes, leaning back. "You're still on that? It was a dress, Arya, let it go." Her dismissal was so casual, it almost threw me, but I caught the flicker of unease in her eyes. I leaned forward, my hands clasped. "You hurt my son, Lauren. I have proof, witnesses, photos, medical reports." Her smirk faded, her fingers pausing on her pen. "Proof?" she scoffed, but her voice cracked. I didn't blink. "Fern saw it. Wendy documented the bruises. And your family values posts? They'll look real hollow next to the truth." Her face paled, just for a second, before she forced a laugh. "You're bluffing. No one will believe you over me." But her hands trembled, betraying her. I pulled out my phone, not to show her anything but to let her see I meant business. "I'm filing a lawsuit," I said, my voice low. "Assault, emotional distress, it'll hit your career, your image, everything." Lauren's jaw tightened, her eyes darting to the door like she wanted to run. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. I stood, towering over her desk now. "I already have. And when this goes public, your clients will drop you faster than you dropped your fake tears at Mom and Dad's." Her mouth opened, then closed, no words coming out. A rare sight. I turned to leave but paused at the door, looking back. "You thought I'd stay quiet like always. Not this time." Her silence was deafening, her usual venom replaced by a stunned, desperate stare. I walked out, past Clint's curious glance, my boots echoing in the hall. In the elevator I exhaled, my hands shaking not from fear but from power. I'd exposed her hypocrisy, not with a scream but with the truth, sharp and undeniable. In the car I called Patrice, recounting every word. "Perfect," she said. "Her reaction strengthens our case." I smiled, the city blurring past. Lauren's untouchable status was crumbling and I'd lit the fuse. My parents' betrayal, her smugness, it all fueled me. But this wasn't just revenge. It was justice for Theo, for me. As I drove to Patrice's office, I felt lighter, like I'd shed the weight of years. They'd tried to erase me, but I was rewriting the story, and this time, I'd win. I pulled up to Wendy's house that evening. The warm glow of her porch light, a stark contrast to the cold glare of Lauren's office. Theo bounced in the back seat, clutching a drawing he'd made at school. A stick-figure family with me, him, and Wendy under a bright sun. "Can I show Aunt Wendy?" he asked, his voice light, untouched by the storm of the past weeks. I nodded, my throat tight, and followed him up the steps, the weight of the day still lingering but softening in this safe space. Wendy opened the door, her curly hair tied back, a flour-dusted apron over her jeans. "There's my favorite artist," she said, kneeling to admire Theo's drawing. He beamed, launching into a story about the super-tall tree he'd added. I watched, leaning against the doorframe, my heart swelling. This was family, not the toxic loyalty of Vernon and Dolores, but the quiet, real love of people who showed up. Wendy caught my eye, her smile fading slightly. "You okay?" she asked, standing. I nodded, but my tight lips gave me away. She sent Theo to the kitchen with a promise of cookies, then pulled me into the living room. The space was cozy, cluttered with books and framed photos. Wendy with her brothers, Theo's first birthday, me and her at a farmer's market. No trace of judgment, just warmth. I sank onto the couch, my hands twisting in my lap. "I faced Lauren today," I said, my voice low. "Told her about the lawsuit." Wendy's eyes widened, but she didn't interrupt. I recounted Lauren's stunned silence, the crack in her armor, and how it felt to finally stand tall. "Your parents?" she asked gently. I shook my head. "They're done with me, said I'm breaking the family." My voice cracked, and Wendy reached for my hand, her grip steady. "They're wrong, Arya. You're saving Theo, that's what matters." Her words landed soft but solid, like a truth I'd been too scared to fully embrace. I thought of Vernon's cold stare, Dolores's fake tears, and then Theo's drawing, me, him, Wendy. My chosen family, not my biological one, was where I belonged. Theo bounded in, a cookie in each hand, crumbs on his chin. "Mom, try this," he said, thrusting one at me. I took a bite, the chocolate melting on my tongue, and laughed despite myself. Wendy joined in, ruffling his hair. We spent the evening like that, Theo telling stories, Wendy teasing him, me soaking in the ease of it all. No accusations, no ultimatums, just love. As we played a board game, Theo's giggles filling the room, I felt the contrast sharply. My parents' house heavy with blame versus this, light with acceptance. Driving home later, Theo asleep in the back, I glanced at his peaceful face in the rearview mirror. Wendy's words echoed, "You're saving Theo." For the first time I believed it fully. My biological family had tried to break me, but here, with my chosen allies, I was whole. The lawsuit, the evidence, the fight, it was all for this moment, this safety. And I'd do it all again to keep it. The morning after Wendy's, I sat at my desk, sunlight streaming through the window, Theo's laughter from the backyard mixing with the hum of a lawnmower. My laptop was open, a draft email to my parents half written, my fingers hovering over the keys. Last night's warmth at Wendy's had clarified things. I wasn't just fighting for Theo's safety. I was done being tethered to Vernon and Dolores's toxicity. Today, I'd set new boundaries, cutting the financial and emotional strings they'd used to control me for years. I finished the email, keeping it short. I'm ending all contact. No more financial support, no more guilt trips. Theo and I are done. My heart raced as I hit send, the finality of it both terrifying and freeing. Vernon had been covering half of Theo's school fees, a lifeline I'd leaned on, but it came with strings, endless lectures about gratitude, subtle digs about my failures. No more. I'd already called Theo's school, arranging a payment plan with my savings. It'd be tight, but I'd manage. Freedom was worth it. Next, I blocked their numbers. Vernon, Dolores, Lauren. My phone felt lighter, like I'd shed a physical weight. I stood, pacing the room, my hands fidgeting. The silence was loud, but it wasn't empty. It was space for something new. I thought of Patrice's update yesterday. The lawsuit was filed and Lauren had been served papers. She'd called me in a panic, leaving a voicemail I didn't answer. "Arya, this is insane, call me back." I deleted it, my resolve firm. She didn't get to negotiate now. I sat back down, pulling up my budget spreadsheet. Numbers stared back: rent, groceries, Theo's fees. I'd pick up freelance social work gigs, maybe tutor on weekends. My hands steadied as I typed, each calculation a brick in the fortress I was building. Theo burst in, grass stains on his knees, holding a dandelion. "For you, Mom," he said, grinning. I tucked it behind my ear, pulling him into a hug. "Thanks, buddy." His warmth grounded me, a reminder of why every hard choice mattered. Later, I called Wendy, needing to hear her voice. "I cut them off," I said, my voice low. She didn't cheer or pry, just said, "I'm proud of you. You're enough for Theo." Her words sank in, easing the knot in my chest. I hung up, glancing at a photo on my desk, me and Theo at the beach, laughing. My parents had never asked for a copy, their loss. I turned the frame slightly, letting it catch the light. By evening, I'd changed my bank account passwords, ensuring Vernon's emergency access was gone. I wrote a letter to Theo for when he's older, explaining why I walked away, not out of anger but love. I sealed it, my hands steady now. The day had been a whirlwind of small, deliberate acts, each one a line drawn in the sand. Lauren's lawsuit would handle her, but this was me reclaiming my life, my son's future. As I tucked Theo into bed, his eyes heavy, I kissed his forehead. "We're okay," I whispered, and for the first time I knew we were. The courtroom was quieter than I'd expected, the kind of hush that makes your own heartbeat loud. I sat beside Patrice, my hands folded tightly in my lap, as the judge reviewed our case. It had been weeks since I'd cut ties with my parents, and the lawsuit against Lauren was now in full swing. Today wasn't the end, but a key hearing, our chance to present the evidence and push for a restraining order to keep Theo safe. I glanced at Lauren across the room, her face pale, her usual polish dulled. She avoided my eyes, and I felt a surge of strength. This was my moment to redefine our family's legacy, not for them, but for Theo and me. Patrice stood, her voice clear as she laid out the case. The photo of Lauren looming over Theo, Wendy's medical report, Fern's statement, my recording from the family meeting. Each piece was a thread, weaving a truth Lauren couldn't dodge. The judge, a stern woman with gray streaks in her hair, nodded slowly, her pen moving across her notes. Lauren's lawyer argued she'd been upset, not abusive, but his words sounded hollow, even to him. When Patrice played the recording, Lauren's venomous "get over it" aria, the room felt heavier, the judge's eyes narrowing. I took the stand, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. She hurt my son, I said, looking at the judge, not Lauren. I'm here to protect him. I described Theo's fear, his flinches, the bruises. The judge asked gentle questions and I answered honestly, my hands gripping the stand's edge. When I stepped down, Patrice squeezed my arm, whispering, "You did great." Lauren didn't testify. Her lawyer's choice, Patrice later said, to avoid her crumbling under cross-examination. The judge granted the restraining order, a temporary win, and set a date for the full trial. Outside, Patrice hugged me, her smile fierce. "Her career's toast," she said. "Her firm's already distancing." I nodded, the weight of it sinking in. Lauren's public image, her talks, her posts, was unraveling. Social media buzzed with whispers, her clients pulling back. It wasn't just punishment, it was justice. Clearing space for Theo to grow without her shadow. Back home, I picked Theo up from school, his backpack bouncing as he ran to me. "Can we get ice cream?" he asked, grinning. We did, sitting on a park bench, his chocolate cone dripping as he chattered about recess. I watched him, my heart full. This was the legacy I was building. Not Vernon's lectures or Dolores's guilt, but a life where Theo felt safe, loved, seen. I'd used the lawsuit's momentum to start a small advocacy group, connecting single moms with legal resources. It was small, but growing, each step a way to turn my pain into purpose. As Theo licked his cone, I tucked a napkin under his chin, my fingers lingering. The courtroom, the evidence, the order, it all led here to this quiet moment. I wasn't just fighting for justice, I was reclaiming my name, my strength, for us. Theo looked up, smiling. "You're the best, Mom." I kissed his forehead, my eyes stinging. This was enough. This was everything. Theo's laughter echoed through our small backyard as he chased a butterfly, his sneakers kicking up grass. I sat on the porch, a mug of tea cooling in my hands, watching him with a quiet peace I hadn't felt in years. The lawsuit against Lauren was moving forward, the restraining order in place, and my parents' silence since I'd cut them off was a strange but welcome relief. Today, though, wasn't about them or the fight. It was about this moment, this clarity, where I finally understood my worth didn't come from their approval. It came from within, from the life I'd built for Theo. I thought back to the reunion, Lauren's grip on Theo's arm, the way Vernon and Dolores twisted it to make me the villain. For so long I'd carried their blame, thinking if I tried harder, I'd earn their love. But sitting here, the sun warm on my face, I saw it clearly. Their love was conditional, a trap I'd escaped. Theo was my mirror, his joy reflecting the truth. I was enough. Every choice, from gathering evidence to facing Lauren in her office, had been for him, but it had also freed me. I sipped my tea, the steam curling in the air. The advocacy group I'd started was small, but growing. A handful of moms now sharing resources, finding strength. It wasn't fame or fortune, but it was purpose. A way to turn my scars into something good. Theo ran up, plopping beside me, his cheeks flushed. "Mom, did you see that butterfly? It was huge." I laughed, ruffling his hair. "Huge, huh? You're my butterfly expert now." He grinned, leaning into me, and my heart swelled. This was the peace I'd fought for. Not revenge, but presence, being here, fully for him. Looking out at the yard, I realized the weight I'd carried. The need to prove myself to my family was gone. Theo's safety, his smile, my own steady breath, that was validation enough. I'd flipped the script, not by destroying them, but by building something better. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky gold, I felt whole, rooted in a truth no one could take away. Have you ever had to walk away from people who didn't see your worth? It's hard, but it's also freeing. My journey, from Lauren's betrayal to finding peace with Theo, taught me that family isn't always blood. It's the people who lift you up, who see you. I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. What's a moment when you chose yourself, or someone you love, over toxicity? If my story resonated, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it's okay to define their own worth. Together we can remind each other that our value isn't in others' eyes, it's in our hearts, our choices, our courage. Keep shining, because you're enough, just as you are.